Hi ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to go over how to plot points on a graph. How to actually construct a graph is not what we're going to focus on today, which is why we have a graph that is already made for you, but I do want to go over the basics of how to put your points from a data table onto the graph itself. So the first thing I want to point out for you is that on a data table, on this data table in particular, you have two columns. The first column says year, and if you go down to your graph, you're also going to see the word year. And you'll notice that the word year is on what we call our x-axis. And I'm going to go ahead and label that for you so that you can see that. What that means is that this first column here in your data table is actually always your x-axis also, or what we call our independent variable. Then the next column, number of movies, you will see over here on our y-axis, and I'm going to label that for you. And that is always going to be our dependent variable. And so this second column, which is always going to be our dependent variable, always ends up on our y-axis. And so even though I'm not asking you to label that, I at least want to point that out because that is going to help us plot points. And so when you go to look at these to put them on your graph, I want you to think of them as having parentheses around each row. So you can think of them like this, with a comma between each one. And so we have one set of ordered pairs there, and one set here, and so on and so forth. And so in an ordered pair, we're always going to have two numbers, with the first one being x and the second one being y. And so you do this in other subjects like math when you're graphing. And so I know this should sound familiar to you, but I want to make sure I go over this with you. So you have x and you have y, which matches up to your graph x and y. And so our first set of data here is the year 2008 and number of movies being 8. So in 2008, there were 8 movies. And so what you're going to do is you are going to create kind of with your fingers, and I'm going to do it with a line, but you would do it with your fingers, almost like an imaginary line. And so I'm actually going to do it with a line here. You would come first to your x value, which is 2008, and you would create a vertical line up from 2008. And I'm just and you would do this with your fingers, not actually on your paper. So you would literally put your finger up from 2008 vertical. And then your y value is 8 here. And so you would create a horizontal line from 8 over until it reaches that vertical line. And then you can see that they cross right here on my screen where my mouse pointer is, where the crosshairs are. And these are imaginary lines where your fingers are. So you can kind of imagine your fingers making a T, and that is where you're going to put your first data point. And so those lines don't exist. Once again, those are the points that you were just making with your fingers. And so you went up from 2008 until you got to 8, your y value, and you made your dot in exactly that point. And your dot is going to be nice, much nicer than mine because I'm trying to graph with a touchpad mouse, and you're going to be graphing with your pencil. And so just one more time, if we can practice. So if I come here to my second ordered pair, basically that's the year 2009, and number of movies is 12. And so I would do the same thing. Once again, I'm going to use my finger, and I'm not going to do it with the line this time. I'm just going to show you to go up. So I would go up 2009 until I reach 12 here on the y, because that was in my y column. So I'm going up 2009 till I reach 12 here on the y column. And notice I'm not marking with my pencil at all until I reach the spot where they meet. 2009, there's 12, 2009, 12. This is where they meet, is exactly right here And so that is where I create my dot. Just a couple of warnings to you. Number one, your dots should be exact. Number two, please make sure that they are large enough to be seen and dark enough to be seen. There can't be anything as an imaginary data point. It has to be large enough to be seen and dark enough to be seen, so that way when you go to graph your line, that it can be easily done. And so I'm going to put the rest of the data points on the graph for you real quick so that I can show you how to do a line. So here's 2010, and I'm going to go to 10 here, which is right here. And once again, you're going to be doing this a lot easier since I'm trying to use my fingers and a mouse track. And then 2011, and here's 14 on the y-axis. This is where 14 is, and then 2012, and I need to get to 18 on the y-axis, which is all the way up here. And if my mouse will do what I tell it to, there we go. And so we have this wonderful data point that I am creating at 2012 and 18. So now, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a line that goes through my data. And so I'm going to come down here to the point 0, 0. So I'm going to come through the corner of my graph. And you can do this with a ruler. You can do it with the edge of another piece of paper. You can do this with the edge of your ID. Folks, anything that has a straight line on it, you can do this with. I have students that will often tell me, well, I didn't have a ruler. You don't need a ruler. You can use the edge of a book. You can use anything that has a straight edge to it. And what you're going to do is you are going to find a place that kind of goes through the middle of your data. So there's kind of an even amount of dots on each side. Notice I've got 3 on the right side and 2 on the left side. That works perfectly. And I draw my line, and I'm done. And I have a line on my data, a line on my graph going through the middle-ish of my data, and I have my correctly plotted points. And you are done. I hope this helped.